A luxury sedan hurtles through the dark, headlights cutting wild arcs across empty Kansas farmland. Inside, Ava Sinclair grips the wheel, her knuckles bone white, her mind somewhere between fury and freefall. She's running. From what, she doesn't even know anymore. The engine roars, the speedometer climbs, and then headlights, a truck, dead ahead, too close, too fast. Metal screams, tires shriek. Two lives nearly collide in the middle of nowhere, and in that split second, everything changes. One choice, one moment, one collision that never quite happens, but sets everything else in motion. If you want to see where this crash leads, where two broken people find something neither of them was looking for, stay with me until the end. And if this story hits you somewhere deep, hit that like button and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this one travels. Noah Carter stood in the driveway of his farmhouse, arms crossed, watching the sky turn violet over the wheat fields. The air smelled like dust and diesel. His truck sat idling behind him, engine ticking in the quiet. Emma was inside, probably still awake, even though he'd told her twice to brush her teeth and get into bed. She was 8 now, and stubborn in ways that reminded him too much of someone he'd lost. He rubbed the back of his neck and squinted at the horizon. It was nearly 10. He'd been up since 5. The day had been long, the kind that left his joints aching and his thoughts too loud. But that was normal. Normal was all he had left, and he clung to it. The sound of an engine cut through the silence. Noah turned his head, frowning. Out here, you didn't hear cars this late unless someone was lost or drunk. The road that ran past his property was 2 lanes of cracked asphalt bordered by nothing but fields and fence posts. No streetlights, no houses for miles in either direction. The engine got louder, fast, too fast. He stepped toward the road, his boots crunching gravel, and that's when he saw it. A low, sleek sedan tearing down the center line like it was being chased by something invisible. The headlights swung wide as it took a curve, and for a second Noah thought it might lose control completely. Jesus, he muttered. The car rocketed past him, close enough that he felt the gust of displaced air. It had to be doing 70, maybe 80. Out here, on this road, that was suicide. Noah stood there for a moment, heart pounding, waiting for the sound of a crash that didn't come. The taillights disappeared into the dark. He shook his head and turned back toward the house. Idiot. Ava didn't know where she was. She didn't care. Her hands were locked on the steering wheel, her foot pressed flat against the accelerator, and her mind was a hurricane of things she didn't want to think about. Faces. Voices. Decisions she hadn't made and consequences she couldn't escape. The city had chewed her up and spat her out, and she'd kept smiling through all of it because that's what you did when your last name was Sinclair. But tonight, she was done smiling. She'd left the downtown penthouse 2 hours ago with no plan, no destination, just the need to move. To go. To be anywhere but there. The highway had turned into a state route, the state route into a county road, and now she was somewhere that didn't even have a name. Just darkness and flatland and the hum of the engine. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. She glanced down. Another call. Another message. She didn't look at the screen. The road curved ahead. She didn't slow down. The tires screamed as she took the turn too wide, drifting into the opposite lane. Her stomach lurched. She yanked the wheel back, overcorrected, felt the back end fishtail. For a split second, she thought she'd lost it. But the car straightened. The road opened up again, and she kept going. Her chest was tight. Her breath came too fast. She told herself it was adrenaline, but she knew better. This wasn't courage. This was running, and she was good at it. Emma Carter sat cross-legged on her bed, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm, and a chapter book open in her lap. She wasn't reading. She was listening. Her dad was outside. She could hear his boots on the gravel, the faint rumble of the truck. He always checked the property before bed, even though nothing ever happened out here. He said it was habit. Emma thought it was something else, something quieter, something sad. She chewed her lip and glanced at the window. The curtains were half drawn, and through the gap she could see the faint glow of the porch light. Beyond that, nothing. Just the big empty sky and the fields that went on forever. She missed her mom. Not in the sharp, cutting way she used to. That had dulled over time, turned into something softer but heavier. Now it was just there, always, like a bruise that never quite healed. Her dad didn't talk about it. He didn't talk about much, really, but Emma could see it in the way he moved, the way he looked at her sometimes like he was seeing someone else. She heard the front door open and close, footsteps in the hall. "Em? I'm awake," she called back. "You're supposed to be asleep." "I know." He appeared in the doorway, tall and lean, his face lined in ways that made him look older than 32. His hair was dark, streaked with gray at the temples. He had kind eyes, but tired ones. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah." He didn't believe her. She could tell. But he didn't push. He never did. "Get some sleep," he said. "School tomorrow." "Okay." He lingered for a second, like he wanted to say something else but didn't know what. Then he nodded and walked away. Emma waited until his footsteps faded before she closed her book and turned off the lamp. She lay back against the pillow, staring at the ceiling, and tried not to think about how quiet the house was. Basumtikin. Noah didn't sleep well. He never did. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slow circles overhead, and thought about all the things he couldn't change. The farm, the bills, Emma. The weight of being the only parent she had left. He'd been doing this for 3 years now. 3 years since the accident. 3 years since he'd looked at a state trooper standing on his porch and felt the entire world collapse in on itself. He didn't blame anyone. That wasn't his way. But he carried it. All of it. Every mistake, every moment he should have been there and wasn't. Every word he didn't say. He rolled onto his side and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be the same as today, and the day after that, and the day after that. And that was fine. It had to be. Shut. The bridge was old. Ava didn't notice it until she was already on it. It was narrow, wood-planked, built over a shallow river that cut through the farmland like a scar. No guardrails. No signs. Just a stretch of worn timber that creaked under the weight of her car. She should have slowed down. She didn't. The boards groaned. The car bounced. And then, with a crack like a gunshot, the left front tire hit a gap in the planking and the wheel jerked hard to the side. Ava's hands flew off of the steering wheel. The car lurched, spun. She screamed, and then she was airborne. For a moment, everything went silent. Weightless. Frozen. Then the impact. The car hit the water nose first, and the windshield exploded into a spiderweb of cracks. The airbag deployed, slamming into her chest and knocking the air from her lungs. Water rushed in through the vents, cold and fast. The seatbelt locked tight across her ribs. Ava gasped, choking, her vision blurred. The car was sinking. The dashboard lights flickered and died. Darkness closed in. She fumbled for the seatbelt, her fingers numb and clumsy. It wouldn't release. She yanked harder. Nothing. Water was up to her waist now, her chest, her throat. Panic hit her like a fist. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. She was going to die here. Noah woke to the sound of Emma's voice. "Dad!" He bolted upright, heart hammering, already reaching for the lamp. "What? What's wrong?" "There's someone outside." He froze. "What?" "I heard something by the river." Noah swung his legs out of bed and grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand. He moved quickly, barefoot, pulling a jacket over his t-shirt as he headed for the door. "Stay inside," he told her. "But stay inside." He didn't wait for her to argue. He stepped out onto the porch and clicked on the flashlight, sweeping the beam across the yard. Nothing. Just the truck, the barn, the empty driveway. Then he heard it. A sound. Faint. Metallic. Coming from the direction of the river. He moved toward it, his pulse quickening. The grass was wet with dew, soaking through his socks. The flashlight beam bounced as he walked, cutting through the dark. And then he saw it. The bridge. Or what was left of it. A section of the railing was gone, splintered wood hanging into the water. And below, half submerged in the shallow river, was a car. "Damn it," Noah breathed. He broke into a run. The water was over her head now. Ava's lungs burned. Her vision was going dark at the edges. She pulled at the seatbelt one last time, her movements weak, her thoughts scattering. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. And then something grabbed her. An arm, strong and solid, reaching through the broken window, a hand on her shoulder, a voice, muffled but urgent. "Hold on!" The seatbelt snapped. The pressure released. And suddenly she was being pulled, dragged through the window, her body scraping against broken glass. She couldn't help, couldn't fight. She just let herself be moved. Her head broke the surface. She gasped, choking, water streaming from her nose and mouth. Her chest heaved. The world spun. "I got you," the voice said. "I got you. Just breathe." She tried. She couldn't. She coughed, retched, her body convulsing. Strong arms lifted her, carried her, laid her down on something solid. Grass, ground. She didn't know. "Breathe," the voice said again. "Calmer now. Steady." She did. One breath, then another. Her vision cleared just a little, enough to see a face. A man, soaked and breathing hard, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. He was looking at her like he wasn't sure if she was alive or not. "You're okay," he said. "You're okay." Ava stared at him, her chest still heaving, her mind trying to catch up with what had just happened. She wasn't okay, but she was alive. Noah sat back on his heels, his heart still pounding, and tried to steady his breathing. The woman was curled on her side, coughing up river water, her whole body shaking. She was young, maybe late 20s, dressed in clothes that cost more than his mortgage payment. Her hair was dark, tangled, plastered to her face. She looked like she'd just crawled out of a magazine and into a nightmare. "Can you sit up?" he asked. She didn't answer, just kept breathing, her eyes wide and unfocused. Noah glanced back at the car. It was nose down in the water, the back end sticking up at an angle. Totaled. If he'd been 5 minutes later, he pushed the thought away and looked at her again. "Hey, can you hear me?" She blinked, focused on him. "Who?" Her voice cracked. She coughed again. "Don't talk," Noah said. "Just breathe." She nodded, barely. He ran a hand through his wet hair and looked around. Emma was standing at the edge of the yard, her arms wrapped around herself, watching. He waved her back. "Go inside," he called. She didn't move. "Emma?" Reluctantly, she turned and walked toward the house. Noah looked back at the woman. "You got anyone I can call?" She shook her head. "No one?" "No?" He frowned. "Okay. Can you walk?" She didn't answer, just stared at him, her expression somewhere between shock and exhaustion. Noah sighed. "All right, come on." He slipped an arm under her shoulders and helped her sit up. She winced, her hand going to her ribs, probably bruised from the airbag. He waited until she steadied, then stood and offered his hand. She took it. Her grip was weak, but she managed to get to her feet. She swayed, and he caught her by the elbow. "Easy," he said. "I'm fine," she muttered. She wasn't, but Noah didn't argue. He just kept hold of her arm and started walking her toward the house. Ava's legs felt like rubber. Her chest ached. Her ribs screamed with every breath. But she kept moving, one step at a time, leaning on the man who'd pulled her out of the river. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know anything except that she was alive, and she shouldn't be. The house was small. Single story, weathered siding, a porch light that flickered like it might give out any second. The man led her up the steps and through the front door, and the warmth inside hit her like a wave. She shivered. "Sit," he said, guiding her to a couch in the living room. She sat. Her whole body was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving nothing but the cold. The man disappeared down the hall and came back with a towel and a blanket. He handed her the towel first. "Dry off." She took it, her hands trembling, and pressed it to her face. It smelled like laundry detergent and something else, something clean. He draped the blanket over her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. He didn't respond, just stood there, arms crossed, looking at her like he was trying to figure out what to do next. A girl appeared in the hallway. Small, maybe 8 or 9, with wide eyes and messy brown hair. She stared at Ava like she was an alien. "Em, go back to bed," the man said. "Is she okay?" the girl asked. "She's fine. Go." The girl hesitated, then turned and disappeared. The man looked back at Ava. "You got a name?" "Ava," she said. "Ava." "Yeah." He nodded. "I'm Noah." "Noah," she repeated. He waited, like he expected her to say more. When she didn't, he sighed and sat down in the chair across from her. "You want to tell me what you were doing out here going 90 miles an hour in the middle of the night?" Ava's throat tightened. She looked down at her hands, still wrapped around the towel. I don't know, she said, and it was the truth. Noah watched her, trying to piece together what kind of person ended up in a situation like this. She didn't look like trouble, but then again, trouble rarely did. You hurt? He asked. She shook her head. I don't think so. You should see a doctor. I'm fine. You almost drowned. I said I'm fine. Her voice was sharper now, defensive. Noah held up a hand. All right, your call. She didn't say anything, just pulled the blanket tighter around herself and stared at the floor. Noah leaned back in the chair and rubbed his face. It was past midnight now. He was soaked, exhausted, and sitting across from a stranger who'd nearly died in his front yard. He should call the police, file a report, let someone else deal with this. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she was sitting there, looking like she'd been running from something and finally hit a wall. Maybe it was the fact that she had no one to call. Maybe it was just the stubborn part of him that couldn't walk away from someone who needed help. You got somewhere to go? He asked. She looked up at him. What? Somewhere to go. A hotel. A friend. Anything. She hesitated, then shook her head. Noah sighed. You can stay here tonight. Her eyes widened. What? Just tonight, he said. You're in no shape to go anywhere. In the morning, I'll drive you into town, and you can figure out what's next. I don't, It's not a discussion, Noah said. You nearly died. You're not getting back in a car tonight. Ava stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. Okay. Noah stood. I'll get you some dry clothes. You can sleep in the guest room. He walked down the hall without waiting for a response. Ava sat alone in the living room, the blanket wrapped tight around her, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd almost died. She'd been pulled from a sinking car by a stranger, and now she was sitting in his house wearing his blanket, agreeing to stay the night. It didn't make sense. None of it did. But she was too tired to care. She leaned back against the couch and closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she didn't think about anything at all. Noah returned with a stack of folded clothes, an old t-shirt, a pair of sweatpants, socks. He set them on the arm of the couch. Bathroom's down the hall, he said. Guest room's the second door on the left. Thank you, Ava said again. He nodded. Get some sleep. He turned and walked away, leaving her alone again. Ava sat there for a moment, staring at the clothes, and then slowly stood. Her legs were steadier now, but her chest still ached. She picked up the stack and made her way down the hall, moving quietly so she wouldn't wake the girl. The guest room was small, a bed, a dresser, a window that looked out over the dark fields. It smelled faintly of dust and old wood. Ava changed into the dry clothes, folding her wet ones and setting them on the dresser. The t-shirt was too big, the sweatpants too long, but they were warm, soft. She climbed into the bed and pulled the blanket up to her chin. For a long time, she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. And then, finally, she slept. Whoa. Noah stood in the hallway, listening. The house was silent again. Ava was in the guest room. Emma was asleep. Everything was still. He walked back to his own room and sat on the edge of the bed, his clothes still damp, his mind racing. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she was running from, but he knew what it looked like when someone was drowning, and he knew he couldn't just let her sink. He lay back and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd deal with it. Tonight, he just needed to rest. Morning came slow. The sun rose over the fields, casting long shadows across the yard. The air was cool and still. The river ran quiet, the wreckage of the car barely visible beneath the surface. Noah was up before dawn, like always. He made coffee, checked the animals, stood on the porch, and watched the sky turn from gray to gold. Emma came out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Is she still here? Yeah. Is she okay? I think so. Emma nodded, then looked up at him. Are you okay? Noah glanced down at her. Yeah, kiddo, I'm fine. She didn't look convinced. He ruffled her hair. Go get dressed. I'll make breakfast. She wandered back inside, and Noah stood there a moment longer, coffee mug in hand, watching the horizon. He didn't know what today would bring, but he had a feeling it was going to be different. Ava woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then it all came back. The crash, the water, the man who pulled her out. She sat up slowly, wincing at the ache in her ribs. The room was filled with soft morning light. Outside, she could hear birds. She stood, still wearing the borrowed clothes, and walked out into the hallway. The house was quiet, but she could hear voices in the kitchen. She followed the sound and found Noah standing at the stove, flipping pancakes. The girl, Emma, was sitting at the table, swinging her legs, a glass of orange juice in front of her. They both looked up when Ava appeared. "Morning," Noah said. "Morning," Ava replied. Emma stared at her, curious and cautious. "Hungry?" Noah asked. Ava hesitated. "I don't want to." "Sit," he said. "You need to eat." She sat. Noah set a plate in front of her. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, more food than she'd eaten in days. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded and went back to the stove. Emma kept staring. "What's your name?" Ava asked. "Emma." "That's a nice name." Emma didn't respond, just kept staring. Ava looked down at her plate and started eating. It was the best meal she'd had in a long time. After breakfast, Noah drove Ava into town. The nearest town was 15 miles away, a handful of buildings, a gas station, a diner, and not much else. He pulled into the parking lot of a small motel and put the truck in park. "You can stay here while you figure things out," he said. Ava looked at the motel. It was dated, worn, the kind of place you passed through but didn't stay. "I don't have my wallet," she said. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 20s. He held them out. She stared at him. "I can't." "Take it. I'll pay you back." "Don't worry about it." She took the money, her fingers brushing his. "Why are you helping me?" Noah looked at her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he shrugged. "Someone's gotta." He got out of the truck and walked around to her side, opening the door. Ava climbed out, still holding the bills. "You need anything else?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I'll be fine." He nodded. "All right." He started to walk back to the truck, then paused and looked at her again. "You got people you can call?" "Yeah," she lied. He didn't believe her. She could tell. But he didn't push. "Take care of yourself," he said. "You too." He climbed into the truck and drove away. Ava stood there in the parking lot, watching until the truck disappeared, and then she turned and walked into the motel. She didn't know what came next, but for the first time in a long time, she was still alive to find out. The motel room smelled like stale cigarettes and cleaning solution that hadn't quite done its job. Ava sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the 2 $20 bills Noah had given her, and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do now. Her phone was somewhere at the bottom of the river, along with her purse, her ID, her credit cards. Everything. She had nothing but the clothes Noah had lent her and $40 that wasn't even hers. She should call someone, her father, her assistant, the lawyers who handled everything she couldn't be bothered with. But the idea of making that call, of hearing her father's voice, tight with disappointment and barely concealed fury, made her stomach turn. She lay back on the bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. For the first time in years, no one knew where she was. And for the first time in years, she didn't have to pretend. The silence pressed in around her. No emails pinging, no assistants knocking, no board meetings or charity dinners or carefully orchestrated photo opportunities. Just her, alone in a room that cost $30 a night, wearing borrowed clothes that smelled like laundry detergent and something she couldn't name. She closed her eyes and tried to remember the last time she'd felt this still. She couldn't. Noah drove back to the farm in silence, his hands tight on the wheel, his mind running circles he couldn't stop. He'd done the right thing. He knew that. You didn't leave someone stranded, especially not someone who'd nearly drowned in your front yard. But there was something about the whole situation that didn't sit right. The way she'd looked at him when he asked if she had people to call. The way she'd lied. He'd seen enough people run from things to recognize it when it was happening. The truck rattled over the gravel drive and he parked beside the barn. The sun was climbing higher now, burning off the morning cool. He sat there for a moment, engine ticking, staring at the farmhouse. 3 years he'd been doing this alone. 3 years since the accident. 3 years of waking up, working until his body gave out, and falling asleep too exhausted to dream. It was a rhythm, a routine, safe. And now some stranger had crashed into his life, literally, and disrupted everything. Emma was waiting on the porch when he got back. She was sitting on the steps, her chin in her hands, watching him like she'd been there the whole time. "Is she okay?" Emma asked. "She's fine." "Where is she?" "Motel in town." Emma frowned. "Why didn't she just stay here?" "Because she doesn't live here, Em." "But she doesn't have anywhere to go." Noah climbed the porch steps and sat down beside her. "She'll figure it out." "What if she doesn't?" He glanced at his daughter. She had her mother's eyes, big and brown and too damn perceptive for her own good. The kind of eyes that saw through every excuse he tried to make. "She will," he said. Emma didn't look convinced. She picked at a loose thread on her jeans and said nothing. Noah let out a breath and stood. "Come on, we got work to do." She followed him inside without argument, but he could feel her watching him, thinking things she didn't say. It was the look she got sometimes when she was working out a problem in her head, the same look she'd had when she was 5 and trying to understand why her mother wasn't coming home. He hated that look. Inside, the house felt too quiet. It always did. The kind of quiet that settled into the walls and made every footstep sound too loud. Noah moved through it like he always did, checking the coffee pot, glancing at the mail on the counter, avoiding the empty spaces where someone else used to be. Emma went to her room. Noah stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter, and tried not to think about the woman he'd left at the motel. He failed. Ava spent the rest of the day in the motel room, pacing and trying to think. She couldn't stay here, not long term. But she couldn't go back either. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The walls felt too close. The air felt too thick. She needed to move, to do something, to stop the spiral of thoughts that kept pulling her under. By late afternoon, she was hungry and restless and tired of her own thoughts. She pulled on the oversized hoodie Noah had given her and walked outside. The sun hit her like a slap, bright and unforgiving. She squinted against it and started walking. The town was even smaller than she'd thought. A main street with a handful of shops, a diner, a gas station. People moved slow here. No one was in a hurry. No one looked at her like she didn't belong, even though she did. She walked into the diner and sat at the counter. A waitress with graying hair and a name tag that said Deb came over with a pot of coffee. "You eating, honey?" "Just coffee," Ava said. Deb poured her a cup and gave her a look that said she didn't believe her. "You sure? You look like you could use a meal." Ava hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, yeah, whatever's easy. Burger and fries?" "Sure." Deb walked away and Ava wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, letting the warmth seep into her palms. The diner smelled like grease and coffee and pie. A few locals sat in booths, talking low, glancing her way without making it obvious. She kept her head down. When the food came, she ate slowly, savoring it in a way she hadn't done in years. She couldn't remember the last time she'd actually tasted what she was eating. Most meals had been business dinners, charity galas, events where the food was just decoration. This was different. This was real. The burger was thick and messy, the kind that dripped juice onto your fingers and didn't apologize for it. The fries were crispy and salted just right. She ate every bite. When she finished, Deb came back and refilled her coffee. "You passing through?" Ava looked up. "Something like that." "Well, you picked a quiet place to pass through." "Yeah." Deb smiled, a small, knowing smile that said she'd seen plenty of people pass through and knew exactly what running looked like. "You need anything, you just holler." "Thanks." Deb walked away and Ava sat there for another hour, nursing her coffee, watching the light fade outside. Through the window, she could see the main street emptying out, shops closing, people heading home. She wondered what that felt like, having a home to go to. When she finally left, she didn't go back to the motel right away. She walked. Down the main street, past the gas station, out to the edge of town where the road opened up into fields and the sky stretched wide and endless. She stood there, hands in the pockets of Noah's hoodie, and breathed. The air was cool now, clean. It smelled like dirt and grass and something she couldn't name, something that felt like peace. She stayed until the stars came out. 2 days passed. Noah didn't think about her, or he tried not to, but Emma kept asking questions. Where did she go? Is she still in town? Are we going to see her again? And every time, Noah gave the same answer. I don't know. Because he didn't, and it wasn't his business. He told himself that 100 times. Told himself she was a stranger who'd gotten herself into trouble and it wasn't his job to fix it. He had enough to worry about. The farm, Emma, the bills stacking up on the kitchen counter. He didn't have room for someone else's problems. But at night, when the house was quiet and Emma was asleep, he'd lie in bed and think about the way Ava had looked sitting in his living room, wrapped in a blanket, shaking and soaked and lost. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself once. On the third day, he drove into town to pick up feed from the supply store. He parked the truck on Main Street and walked inside, nodding at the guy behind the counter who knew him by name. Noah. Hey, Pete. Usual? Yeah. Pete started loading bags of feed onto a dolly, and Noah wandered the aisles, checking prices on things he couldn't afford and didn't need. Fencing wire, tractor parts, a new pair of work gloves to replace the ones that were falling apart. He was halfway to the register when he saw her. Ava, standing outside the diner, hands in the pockets of his hoodie, looking like she'd been there a while. Noah stopped. She hadn't seen him yet. She was just standing there, staring at nothing, her expression distant. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face looked thinner than it had 3 days ago. He should walk away. Mind his business. Let her deal with whatever she was dealing with. But he didn't. He walked outside. She looked up when he approached, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or relief. Hey, Noah said. Hey. They stood there for a moment, neither of them sure what to say. You still in town? Noah said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Thought you'd be gone by now. Ava shrugged. Yeah, me too. He studied her. She looked better than she had 3 days ago, color back in her face, less shaky. But there was something else, something tired, something that looked like she'd been carrying a weight for too long and didn't know how to put it down. You eaten? He asked. She hesitated. Not yet. Come on. He walked into the diner without waiting for her to follow, and after a beat, she did. They sat across from each other in a booth by the window. Deb came over with menus, gave Ava a look that said, I knew you'd be back, and walked away. Noah ordered coffee. Ava did the same. You figure out what you're doing yet? He asked. Ava shook her head. Not really. You call anyone? No. Why not? She looked down at the table. Because I don't want to. Noah didn't push. He just drank his coffee and waited. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else. Something that felt like an understanding neither of them had put into words yet. After a moment, Ava spoke again, her voice quieter. I don't know how to explain it. I can't go back yet. Back where? Anywhere. He frowned. That's not an answer. I know. Deb came back with their food. 2 burgers, fries, the works. Ava picked at hers, not really eating. She moved the fries around on her plate like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. You gonna tell me what you're running from? Noah asked. Ava looked up at him, her eyes sharp. You gonna tell me why you pulled me out of that river? Because you were drowning. That's not an answer. Noah leaned back at the booth, arms crossed. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, despite himself. Fair enough. They ate in silence for a while. Outside, the town moved slow. A couple walked past, holding hands. A truck rolled by, music drifting from the open windows. Finally, Ava spoke. I want to pay you back. For what? The money, the clothes, everything. Don't worry about it. I'm serious. So am I. She looked frustrated. Her jaw tightened and she set down her burger. I don't take charity. It's not charity. It's just helping. Why? Why not? Ava stared at him, her jaw tight. Then she let out a breath and looked away. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Accepting help. Being stuck. Noah set down his coffee and looked at her for a long moment. Really looked at her. Saw past the expensive clothes and the guarded expression and the walls she'd built so high she probably couldn't see over them anymore. You're not stuck, he said quietly. You're just stopped. What's the difference? Stuck means you can't move. Stopped means you're choosing not to. She didn't respond, just sat there, looking out the window, her expression unreadable. Noah finished his burger and stood. He pulled out his wallet and dropped a 20 on the table. I gotta get back. You need anything? You know where to find me. He walked out without looking back. Ava sat there alone, staring at the money, and felt something crack open inside her chest. That night, she walked back to the motel and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about Noah, about Emma, about the way the farm had looked in the morning light, quiet and simple and real. She thought about her life before, the meetings, the pressure, the endless cycle of decisions that weren't really hers, the board members who smiled to her face and plotted behind her back, the charity events where she smiled until her face hurt and shook hands with people who only cared about her last name. She thought about her father, cold and calculating and disappointed in everything she did. She thought about the penthouse, the marble floors, the view of the city that was supposed to make her feel powerful but only made her feel small. And she thought about what Noah had said. Stopped means you're choosing not to. She sat up, her heart pounding, and made a decision. The next morning she walked to the farm. It took her an hour on foot following the road Noah had driven. The air was cool, the sky wide and blue. Her legs ached by the time she was halfway there, but she kept going. The farmhouse appeared in the distance, small and weathered, surrounded by fields that stretched to the horizon. She could see Noah in the yard, working on the fence, his back to the road. By the time she reached the property, her face was flushed, and her shirt was damp with sweat. Noah looked up when he saw her, his expression guarded. Ava. Hi. He straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. What are you doing here? I want to help. He frowned. Help with what? Whatever you need, work. I can work. You don't owe me anything. I know, but I want to. Noah stared at her for a long moment, like he was trying to figure out if she was serious. His eyes narrowed slightly, the way they did when he was working out a problem he didn't have an answer to yet. I don't have money to pay you, he said finally. I don't want money. Then what do you want? Ava hesitated. The truth was, she didn't know. She just knew that sitting in that motel room was killing her slowly, and she needed to do something with her hands. Something that felt real. I don't know, she said honestly. I need something to do. Noah rubbed the back of his neck, considering. Then he sighed. All right, fine, but I'm not babysitting you. I don't need babysitting. We'll see. He handed her a pair of work gloves and nodded toward the fence. Start there. Pull the old wire off. Don't cut yourself. Ava took the gloves and got to work. She was terrible at it. The wire was rusted and sharp, and it fought her every step of the way. Her hands cramped within the first 10 minutes. The gloves were too big, slipping off her fingers every time she tried to grip something. Sweat dripped into her eyes. Her back ached from bending over. By the time she'd cleared 3 posts, she was sweating and frustrated and ready to quit. But she didn't. She kept going, pulling and twisting and cursing under her breath when the wire bit through the gloves and scraped her palm. Noah worked beside her, not saying much, just fixing what needed fixing. Every now and then, he'd glance over, check her progress, and go back to his own work. He didn't offer help, didn't tell her she was doing it wrong, just let her figure it out. And slowly, she did. The rhythm started to make sense. Pull, twist, toss, repeat. Her hands stopped fumbling. Her movements got smoother. It wasn't easy, but it was simple, and simple felt good. Emma came out after school, saw Ava, and stopped in her tracks. What are you doing here? Helping your dad. Emma looked at Noah, her eyes wide. Really? Don't make a big deal out of it, Noah said without looking up. Emma grinned, a huge smile that lit up her whole face, and ran inside. By the time the sun started to set, Ava's hands were blistered, and her arms felt like dead weight. But the fence was done. Noah stepped back, surveying the work, and nodded. Not bad. Ava wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of dirt across her skin. Thanks. You coming back tomorrow? She looked at him, surprised. You want me to? I didn't say that. I asked if you were. She smiled just a little. Yeah, I am. Noah nodded. All right, see you tomorrow. Ava pulled off the gloves and started walking back toward the road. Her whole body ached, but it was a good ache, the kind that came from using muscles she'd forgotten she had. She looked back once and saw Noah still standing by the fence, watching her go. She raised a hand. He nodded, and then she kept walking. The days fell into a rhythm after that. Ava would walk to the farm in the morning, work until late afternoon, and walk back to the motel. Noah didn't talk much, but he didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. She learned how to mend fences, how to stack hay, how to fix a broken gate hinge. Her hands got tougher, her arms got stronger. And slowly, the restlessness that had been eating at her started to quiet. It wasn't glamorous work. It was hard and dirty and sometimes boring. But it was real. And real was something she'd been missing for a long time. Emma warmed up to her, little by little. She'd come outside after school and sit on the porch, watching Ava work, asking questions. Why don't you have a car? I crashed it. Why? I was going too fast. Why? Ava smiled. I don't know. I guess I was in a hurry. To go where? Nowhere. Emma frowned like that didn't make sense, like the idea of hurrying toward nothing was the strangest thing she'd ever heard. Then she shrugged and went back to her homework. Ava watched her for a moment, this small girl with messy hair and grass stains on her knees, and felt something shift in her chest. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been around a kid. Her life hadn't had room for that kind of thing. Children were something other people had, something that showed up at charity events for photo opportunities and then disappeared. But Emma was different. Emma was real. She said what she thought and asked questions that didn't have easy answers, and looked at Ava like she was just a person, not a name or a title or a dollar sign. It was terrifying. It was also kind of wonderful. One evening, after Ava had been there for a week, Noah invited her to stay for dinner. It's just spaghetti, he said, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Nothing fancy. I don't need fancy. They ate at the kitchen table, the three of them, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Ava felt like she was part of something. Emma talked about school, about her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, who gave too much homework, about a boy named Tyler who kept pulling her hair at recess, about a science project she was working on involving vinegar and baking soda. Noah listened, adding a word here and there, asking questions that showed he was actually paying attention. He didn't look at his phone, didn't check the time, just sat there, present, focused on his daughter. Ava mostly stayed quiet, but she smiled more than she had in months. After dinner, Emma went to her room and Ava helped Noah clean up. You don't have to do this, he said, handing her a dish to dry. I know. He scrubbed at a pot, his movements methodical. For a while they worked in silence, the only sound the running water and the clink of dishes. Then Noah spoke without looking at her. Why are you still here? Ava paused, the towel in her hands. Honestly? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Noah looked at her then, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Not suspicion, not wariness. Something softer, something that looked almost like understanding. You can stay as long as you need, he said quietly. Ava's throat tightened. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He went back to the dishes, and they finished cleaning in comfortable silence. What? 2 weeks turned into 3. Ava started staying later. Sometimes she'd eat dinner with them. Sometimes she'd sit on the porch with Emma, helping her with homework or just listening to her talk about her day. She learned that Emma loved drawing, that she wanted a dog but Noah said they couldn't afford one, that her favorite color was purple, and she was terrified of spiders, and she still slept with a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hop. She learned that Noah had grown up on this farm, that he'd left once, tried to make something of himself in the city, and came back when his father got sick, that he'd met his wife there, brought her here, and lost her on a rainy Tuesday 3 years ago when a truck ran a red light. He didn't say it all at once. It came out in pieces, scattered across evenings and quiet moments, bits of a story he didn't tell often. Ava didn't push, didn't ask for more than he was willing to give. She just listened, and sometimes that was all he needed. Noah watched her, cautious but not hostile. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry, just let her be. And slowly, Ava started to feel like maybe she could breathe again. One afternoon, while they were fixing the barn door, Noah spoke without looking at her. You ever gonna tell me what you're running from? Ava stilled, her hands gripping the screwdriver. Does it matter? Depends. On what? On whether you're planning to stay or disappear one day without a word. She looked at him. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. He was holding a piece of wood steady, waiting for her to drill in the screw, but his attention was completely on her. I'm not planning to disappear, she said. Good. They went back to work, but the question hung in the air between them, unanswered and waiting. That night, Ava sat in the motel room and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She looked different, tanned, leaner. Her hands were calloused, her nails broken and dirty no matter how many times she scrubbed them. She didn't recognize herself, and for the first time, that didn't scare her. She thought about calling her father, about going back, about picking up the pieces of the life she'd left behind. But every time she thought about it, something in her chest tightened, like a fist closing around her lungs. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She turned off the light and lay down. And as she closed her eyes, she thought about Noah and Emma and the quiet, simple life they'd built from the wreckage of something terrible. And she wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was room in it for her. The next morning, she walked to the farm like always. But this time, when Noah saw her coming up the drive, he smiled. Just a little, but it was enough. Ready to work? He called. Ava grinned. Always. And for the first time in a long time, she meant it. 3 weeks became a month. Ava stopped counting the days, stopped thinking about the life she'd left behind. It was still there, waiting. She knew that. The company. The board. Her father's empire built on steel and ruthlessness and expectations she'd never been able to meet. But it felt distant now, like something that had happened to someone else. She moved through the days with a kind of rhythm she'd never known before. Wake up, walk to the farm, work, eat, talk, laugh sometimes, sleep. It was simple, and it was enough. Emma started leaving drawings for her on the kitchen table, stick figures of the three of them standing in front of the house, a sun in the corner, crooked letters that spelled out Ava and Dad and me. Ava kept every single one, folded carefully and tucked into the pocket of Noah's hoodie. Noah started talking more. Not a lot, but enough that she learned things. That his wife's name had been Sarah, that she'd loved sunflowers and terrible reality TV and making pancakes shaped like animals, that Emma had been 5 when she died, old enough to remember but young enough that the memories were starting to fade, that he'd been angry for a long time, at the truck driver, at the universe, at himself for not being there, that he still was, sometimes. Ava listened. She didn't offer platitudes, didn't try to fix anything. She just listened. And sometimes, late at night when Emma was asleep, they'd sit on the porch and talk about nothing and everything. The farm, the weather, books they'd read, places they'd been. He told her about growing up here, about leaving, about coming back. She told him about growing up in boardrooms, about never leaving, about running. They didn't talk about the future. Neither of them knew what it looked like yet. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Ava and Noah sat on the porch, drinking coffee and watching the stars. The night was cool and clear. Crickets sang in the grass. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. You think you'll ever go back? Noah asked. Ava looked at him. To what? Whatever you left. She was quiet for a long time, her hands wrapped around the coffee mug. Then she shook her head. I don't know. Maybe, but not yet. What's stopping you? She smiled, sad and small. I think I'm afraid that if I go back, I'll forget what this feels like. What feels like? This. Being normal. Noah leaned back in his chair, looking up at the sky. This isn't normal. This is just life. For you, maybe. He glanced at her. What was your life like before? Ava looked down at her hands. Loud, fast, full of people who didn't really care about me. Sounds lonely. It was. They sat in silence for a while, the night settling around them like a blanket. You're not alone here, Noah said quietly. Ava looked at him, her chest tight. His face was barely visible in the dark, but she could see his eyes. Honest, open, without expectation. I know, she said, and for the first time, she believed it. The next day, everything changed. Ava was in the barn, organizing tools, when she heard a phone ring. She froze, then realized the sound was coming from Noah's office, a small room off the barn where he kept paperwork and supplies. She walked over and saw a cell phone buzzing on the desk. The screen lit up with a number she didn't recognize, but a Kansas area code. Noah came in behind her, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. That's mine. Sorry, I thought... He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and frowned. It's the motel. Ava's stomach dropped like a stone. Noah answered. Hello? He listened, his expression darkening with each passing second. Then he looked at Ava, his eyes sharp. Yeah, she's here. He held out the phone. Ava took it, her hand shaking. Hello, Ms. Sinclair? The voice on the other end was clipped, professional. A woman, probably the manager. This is Pam from the Meadowview Motel. We've been trying to reach you. Your credit card was declined for the last 3 nights, and you have several messages from a Mr. Richard Sinclair and a law firm in New York. They've called here 4 times in the last 2 days looking for you. I need to know if you'll be settling your account or if we should... Ava hung up. She stood there staring at the phone in her hand, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Noah was watching her. Ava, I have to go, she said. What? I have to go. I'm sorry. Wait, slow down. What's going on? She shook her head, handing him the phone like it was burning her hand. I can't explain. I have to deal with something. Deal with what? It's complicated. Noah's jaw tightened. His voice went flat. You said you weren't going to disappear. I'm not. She stopped, her voice cracking. I don't know. She turned and walked out of the barn, moving fast, her breath coming short and panicked. Noah followed, his boots heavy on the gravel. Ava! She didn't stop. Emma was in the yard playing with a stick. She looked up, confused, as Ava walked past. Where are you going? Emma called. Ava didn't answer. By the time she reached the road, she was running. Behind her, she heard Noah call her name one more time, but she didn't look back. Ava made it half a mile down the road before her legs gave out. She stopped, bent over with her hands on her knees, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Her chest was tight, her vision blurred. Panic clawed at her throat like something with teeth. She sank down onto the gravel shoulder, her back against a fence post, and tried to breathe. In, out, in, out. But all she could hear was her father's voice. All she could see was the boardroom, the lawyers, the contracts she'd signed without reading because she'd been too young and too stupid to know better. They'd found her. Of course they had. She'd been naive to think she could just disappear. People like her didn't disappear. They had tracking mechanisms built into their lives. Credit cards, phone records, assistants who knew how to find anyone anywhere. She pressed her palms against her eyes and tried to think. She could go back to the motel, pack up, leave town before anyone showed up. But where would she go? She had no money, no ID, no plan. She could call her father, apologize, crawl back and take whatever punishment he had waiting, step back into the life she'd run from and pretend the last month had never happened. Or she could stay. The thought hit her like a slap. Stay. Here, in this nowhere town with a man she barely knew and his daughter who drew stick figures and asked questions that didn't have answers. It was insane. It was also the only thing that made sense. She stood up, brushed the dirt off her jeans, and started walking back. Noah stood in the yard, watching the road long after Ava disappeared. Emma came up beside him, still holding the stick. Is she coming back? I don't know. Why did she run? Noah looked down at his daughter. Her face was open, worried, waiting for an explanation he didn't have. Sometimes people get scared. Of what? Things they don't want to deal with. Emma frowned. That's dumb. Yeah, Noah said quietly. It is. He went back inside and tried to focus on the things that needed doing. There were always things that needed doing. Broken equipment, leaking pipes, a fence that wouldn't hold much longer. Work was the only thing that kept the thoughts quiet. But today the thoughts were louder than the work. He kept seeing the look on Ava's face when she took that phone call. The way her whole body had gone rigid. The way she'd looked at him like she was drowning all over again. He'd seen that look before. On Sarah's face, The day the doctor told them there was nothing more they could do. On his own face, every time he looked in the mirror for the first year after she died, it was the look of someone who knew they were about to lose something they couldn't get back. Emma appeared in the doorway of the barn. "Dad?" "Yeah? Are you mad at her?" Noah set down the wrench he was holding. "No." "Then why do you look mad?" He sighed and sat down on an overturned bucket. Emma came over and sat beside him, her legs too short to reach the ground. "I'm not mad," he said. I don't know what I am." "Sad?" "Maybe." Emma leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just being. Finally, Emma spoke. "I hope she comes back." "Me too, kiddo," Noah said. "Me too." Ocean. Ava walked back to the farm as the sun started to set. Her legs ached. Her throat was dry. But she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, until the farmhouse came into view. Noah was sitting on the porch steps, his elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. He looked up when he heard her footsteps on the gravel. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ava climbed the steps and sat down beside him. They sat in silence. The sky turned pink, then orange, then purple. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. "I'm sorry," Ava said finally. Noah didn't look at her. "For what?" "Running." "You came back." "Yeah." "So why'd you run in the first place?" Ava looked down at her hands. They were dirty, calloused, nothing like the hands she used to have. "Because that's what I do. When things get hard, I run. And now? Now I'm trying not to." Noah finally looked at her. His face was unreadable in the fading light. "What was that phone call about?" Ava took a breath. "My father. He's been looking for me." "Why?" "Because I disappeared, and people like me don't get to do that." "People like you?" "Rich people. People with responsibilities. People who are supposed to show up and smile and do what they're told." Noah was quiet for a moment. "That why you crashed your car?" "Probably." "You trying to kill yourself?" "No." She said it quickly, firmly. "No, I was trying to get away, and I didn't care what happened." "That's almost the same thing." "I know." They sat in silence again. The stars were coming out now, pinpricks of light in the darkening sky. "So what happens now?" Noah asked. "I don't know. They found me, which means eventually someone's going to show up here looking for me." "And when they do?" Ava looked at him. "I don't know." Noah stood up, brushing off his jeans. "Well, you got some time to figure it out. Come on. Emma's been asking about you all day." He held out his hand. Ava took it. Calm inside, Emma was at the kitchen table, drawing. She looked up when Ava walked in, and her whole face lit up. "You came back!" "Yeah," Ava said. "I did." Emma jumped up and hugged her, wrapping her small arms around Ava's waist. Ava froze for a second, startled, then slowly hugged her back. When Emma pulled away, she was grinning. "I drew you something." She held up a piece of paper. It was another stick figure drawing, but this one was different. 3 figures standing in front of the farmhouse. A sun, a tree, and in crooked letters at the bottom, "Our family." Ava's throat tightened. "Emma, do you like it?" "I love it." Emma beamed and went back to the table, already starting on another drawing. Noah came up beside Ava, his voice low. "She doesn't understand what's happening." "I know." "She's going to ask questions." "I know. And you're going to have to answer them." Ava looked at him. "I will, when the time comes." Noah nodded, then moved past her to start making dinner. Ava stood there for a moment, watching Emma draw and Noah chop vegetables, and felt something shift inside her. This wasn't her life. But maybe it could be. That night, after Emma went to bed, Ava and Noah sat on the porch again. The air was cool. The stars were bright. The world felt very small and very big at the same time. "Tell me about him," Noah said. "Your father." Ava wrapped her arms around herself. "He's complicated." "Most people are." "Not like him. He's brilliant, ruthless. He built an empire from nothing, and he expects everyone around him to do the same, especially me. Why you? Because I'm all he has. My mother died when I was 12. I'm an only child. The company, Sinclair Industries, it's his legacy, and I'm supposed to carry it. But you don't want to. I don't know what I want. I just know I can't be what he needs me to be. Noah leaned back in his chair. What does he need you to be? Perfect. Cold. Focused. Everything he is. And you're not. Ava laughed, a bitter sound. No, I'm a mess. I make mistakes. I feel things. And every time I try to be what he wants, I lose a little more of myself. So you ran. So I ran. They sat in silence for a while. Then Noah spoke. You can't run forever. I know. Eventually, you're going to have to face him. I know that too. You want my advice? Ava looked at him. Sure. Don't go back until you know who you are without him. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. She stared at Noah, this man who barely knew her but somehow saw right through her. And if I never figure that out, she asked quietly, then you keep trying until you do. 2 days later, a black car pulled up to the motel. Pam, the motel manager, called Noah's house that afternoon. Emma answered. Hi, honey, is your dad there? He's outside. Who's this? This is Pam from the motel. Can you get him for me? Emma set down the phone and ran outside. Noah was fixing the tractor, grease up to his elbows. Dad, phone! Noah wiped his hands and came inside. Hello? Noah, it's Pam. Listen, there's a man here asking about Ava. Expensive suit, city car. Says he's looking for Ava Sinclair. Noah's jaw tightened. What'd you tell him? Nothing, but I thought you should know. Thanks, Pam. He hung up and looked at Ava, who was standing in the doorway. She'd heard enough. He sent someone, she said. Yeah. I have to go. No, you don't. Noah, you don't understand. If I don't talk to him, he'll just keep sending people, and eventually they'll come here. Let them. I can't drag you into this. Noah stepped closer, his voice firm. You already did. The second I pulled you out of that river, so stop trying to protect me and figure out what you actually want. Ava stared at him. I want to stay. Then stay. It's not that simple. It is. You just don't believe it yet. Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Noah walked over and opened it. A man stood on the porch. Mid-40s, perfectly tailored suit, sharp eyes. He looked out of place standing in front of a farmhouse, like someone had photoshopped him into the wrong picture. Noah Carter? The man asked. Who's asking? My name is Daniel Marsh. I'm an attorney representing Richard Sinclair. I'm looking for his daughter, Ava. Noah crossed his arms. Never heard of her. Daniel smiled, a thin, professional smile. Mr. Carter, I don't mean to cause trouble, but Miss Sinclair has been missing for over a month, and her father is concerned. I have reason to believe she's been staying here. Your reason's wrong. Is it? Before Noah could respond, Ava stepped into view. Daniel's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or calculation. Miss Sinclair, your father has been very worried. I'm fine, Daniel. That's good to hear. He'd like you to come home. I'm not ready. Daniel's smile didn't falter. I understand, but there are matters that require your attention. The board has been asking questions. Your absence is causing complications. Let it. Ms. Sinclair, I said no. Daniel glanced at Noah, then back at Ava. Perhaps we could speak privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of him. Daniel sighed like he was dealing with a difficult child. Very well. Your father is prepared to give you 1 week. 1 week to handle whatever personal matters you need to handle. After that, he expects you back in New York. If you're not, he will take steps to ensure the company's interests are protected. What does that mean? It means he'll have you declared unfit to manage your shares. The board will vote, and you'll lose everything. Ava's face went pale. He wouldn't. He would. And you know it. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He held it out. 1 week, Ms. Sinclair. I suggest you use it wisely. Ava took the card. Daniel nodded to both of them, then turned and walked back to his car. They watched him drive away in silence. When the car disappeared, Ava sank down onto the porch steps, the card still in her hand. Noah sat down beside her. What's he talking about? Your shares? When my mother died, she left me half the company. My father controls the other half. If I'm declared unfit, he gets control of mine. Can he do that? If he gets the board to vote for it, yeah. And he will. Most of them are his people. So what are you going to do? Ava looked at the card. Daniel's name in embossed letters, a New York number. The life she'd tried to leave behind, coming for her whether she was ready or not. I don't know, she said. But that was a lie. She knew exactly what she had to do. She just didn't know if she was strong enough to do it. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. 1 week, 7 days to decide what kind of person she wanted to be. She could go back, play the game, smile and nod and do what her father wanted, keep her shares, keep the illusion of power, or she could walk away, lose everything, start over with nothing. Both options felt impossible. She got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The house was dark and quiet. She poured herself a glass of water and stood at the window, looking out at the fields. Can't sleep? She turned. Noah was standing in the hallway, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. No. He came into the kitchen and leaned against the counter. You thinking about going back? I'm thinking about a lot of things. That's not an answer. Ava set down the glass. What would you do? If you were me? Noah was quiet for a moment. I can't answer that. I'm not you. But if you were, he looked at her, his expression serious. I'd ask myself what I was really afraid of, losing the money or losing myself. What if it's both? Then you got to figure out which one you can live without. Ava turned back to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, ghostly and unfamiliar. I don't know who I am without the company, she said quietly. I've been groomed for it my whole life. It's the only thing I've ever been good at. That's not true. She looked at him. How would you know? Because I've watched you for the last month, and the person I've seen isn't someone who's only good at board meetings. Who is she then? Noah stepped closer. Someone who works hard, who listens, who cares about people even when she doesn't want to. Someone who makes my daughter smile. Ava's throat tightened. Noah, I'm not saying you shouldn't go back. Maybe you should, but don't go back because you're afraid. Go back because it's what you want. And if I don't know what I want, then stay here until you figure it out. They stood there in the dark kitchen, close enough that Ava could feel the warmth coming off him. She wanted to reach out, to close the distance between them, to let herself lean on someone for once. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped back. I should try to sleep. Noah nodded. Yeah, me too. He turned and walked back down the hall. Ava stood there for a long time, staring at the space where he'd been, and wondered what the hell she was doing. The next morning, Ava woke up with a decision. She found Noah in the barn, working on the tractor. I need to make a call, she said. He looked up. Okay. Can I use your phone? Yeah, it's in the house. Ava walked back to the kitchen and picked up the phone. Her hands were shaking. She dialed the number on Daniel's card. He answered on the second ring. Daniel Marsh. It's Ava. Miss Sinclair, I'm glad you called. I need more time. I'm afraid that's not possible. Make it possible, Daniel sighed. Your father was very clear. 1 week. Then tell him I need to talk to him, directly. There was a pause. I'll see what I can do. Thank you. She hung up before he could say anything else. Her heart was pounding. Her palms were sweating. But she'd done it. She'd bought herself time. Now she just had to figure out what to do with it. The days that followed were strange. Ava kept working on the farm, but there was a tension now that hadn't been there before. A clock ticking in the background, counting down to a decision she didn't want to make. Noah didn't push. He just kept working beside her, steady and solid. Emma seemed to sense something was wrong. She was quieter than usual, watching Ava with worried eyes. One afternoon, while they were sitting on the porch, Emma spoke. Are you leaving? Ava looked at her, surprised. What makes you think that? You seem sad, like you're saying goodbye. Ava's chest tightened. I'm not sad. Then what are you? Confused. Emma frowned. About what? About where I belong. Emma scooted closer and leaned against her. You belong here. Ava wrapped an arm around her. It's not that simple, sweetheart. Why not? Because I have other responsibilities, people who are counting on me. But we're counting on you, too. Ava closed her eyes. I know. They sat like that until the sun started to set, and Ava realized that no matter what she decided, someone was going to get hurt, including her. 3 days before the deadline, Daniel called again. Your father has agreed to speak with you tomorrow, 2 o'clock. He'll call this number. Okay. Miss Sinclair, I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. I do. Good. He hung up. Ava set down the phone and pressed her hands to her face. Tomorrow she'd have to face him. Tomorrow, everything would change. That night, Noah found her sitting on the porch steps, staring at nothing. He sat down beside her. You okay? No? You want to talk about it? Not really. They sat in silence. Then Noah spoke. Whatever happens tomorrow, you know you got a place here, right? Ava looked at him. His face was serious, open, honest. Do I? Yeah. Why? Because you matter. To Emma. To me. Ava's breath caught. Noah, I'm not saying this to make things harder. I'm saying it because it's true, and I think you need to hear it. Ava felt tears prick at her eyes. I don't know if I can do this. Do what? Choose. Noah reached over and took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused, warm. Then don't, he said. Not yet. Just get through tomorrow. The rest will figure itself out. Ava squeezed his hand and held on like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the earth. Okay, she whispered. Okay. They sat there in the dark, holding hands, and Ava let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be all right, even if she didn't believe it yet. The next day arrived too fast. Ava spent the morning pacing, trying to figure out what she was going to say. At 1:50, she sat down at the kitchen table, Noah's phone in front of her. Noah and Emma stayed outside, giving her space. At exactly 2 o'clock, the phone rang. Ava answered. Hello, Ava? Her father's voice, cold, controlled, familiar. Hi, Dad. You've caused quite a bit of trouble. I know. Do you? The board is questioning your stability? The shareholders are nervous? Your little disappearing act has cost us millions. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Ava. Coming home does. Ava closed her eyes. I'm not ready. You don't have the luxury of not being ready. You have responsibilities. I know. Then act like it. Get on a plane, come back. We'll fix this mess you've made and we'll move forward. And if I don't? There was a long pause. Then you lose everything. Your shares, your position, your legacy. Is that what you want? Ava's hands were shaking. I don't know what I want. Then you're weaker than I thought. The words hit like a slap. I'm not weak, Ava said, her voice stronger now. I'm just trying to figure out who I am without you telling me. You're a Sinclair, that's who you are. Maybe that's not enough anymore. Another pause, longer this time. When her father spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, almost sad. Your mother would be disappointed. Ava felt something break inside her chest. Don't, she said. Don't use her against me. I'm not. I'm simply stating a fact. She built this company with me. She wanted you to have it. And you're throwing it away for what? A farm? A man you barely know? It's not about that. Then what is it about? Ava looked out the window. She could see Noah and Emma in the yard playing catch. Emma was laughing. Noah was smiling, and something clicked into place. It's about being happy, she said. Something I haven't been in a very long time. Her father was silent. I'll give you your answer in 3 days, Ava said, but it's going to be my answer, not yours. And before he could respond, she hung up. She sat there, shaking, tears streaming down her face. But for the first time in her life, she felt free. Noah found her in the kitchen 10 minutes later, still sitting at the table, her face streaked with tears. He didn't say anything, just pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. Ava wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I hung up on him. Good. You don't understand. Nobody hangs up on Richard Sinclair. You just did. She let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, I did. How do you feel? Ava thought about it. Terrified, but also lighter. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long I forgot it was there, and now it's gone. That's good. Is it? Because in 3 days I have to make a decision that's going to change everything. And I still don't know what to do. Noah reached over and took her hand. Then we've got 3 days to figure it out. We? Yeah, we. You think I'm letting you do this alone? Ava looked at him. This man who'd pulled her from a river and given her a place to stand when she had nowhere else to go. And she realized something that scared her more than anything her father could say. She was falling for him. Maybe she already had. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not running. Most people would have. Noah squeezed her hand. I'm not most people. No, Ava said, smiling through her tears. You're not. Won't. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Ava threw herself into the work on the farm, trying to quiet her mind with physical exhaustion. She fixed fences, stacked hay, cleaned out the barn, anything to keep moving, to keep from thinking about the deadline that was rushing toward her like a freight train. Noah worked beside her, steady and silent. He didn't push, didn't ask questions, just let her work through it in her own way. Emma seemed to understand that something important was happening. She was quieter than usual, hovering close to Ava whenever she was around, as if afraid she might disappear again. On the second night, after Emma went to bed, Ava and Noah sat on the porch with mugs of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Tell me about your wife, Ava said suddenly. Noah looked at her, surprised. Why? Because you never talk about her. And I want to know. He was quiet for a long time. Ava thought he might not answer. Then he spoke, his voice low. Her name was Sarah. We met in college. She was studying to be a teacher, and I was... He smiled, sad and distant. I was trying to figure out what the hell I was doing with my life. She was the first person who made me feel like I didn't have to have it all figured out. What was she like? Kind? Patient? She laughed at terrible jokes and cried during commercials. She loved this place, even though it was falling apart when we moved here. She said it had good bones. Ava smiled. Sounds like she was right. Yeah, she usually was. Noah stared out at the dark fields. When she died, I didn't think I'd survive it. Not because I wanted to die, but because I couldn't figure out how to keep living. Everything reminded me of her, the house, the farm, Emma. How did you get through it? I didn't have a choice. Emma needed me. So I got up every day and did what needed doing. And eventually the days got a little easier. Not better, just easier. Do you still miss her? Every day. But it's different now. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. Ava looked down at her hands. I'm scared. Of what? Of making the wrong choice. Of losing everything. Of staying and having you wake up one day and realize I'm not worth the trouble. Noah turned to look at her. Ava, I'm serious. I'm a mess, Noah. I ran away from my entire life. I crashed my car. I showed up here with nothing, and I've been pretending I can just start over like the past doesn't matter, but it does. It's always going to matter. You're right, Noah said. It is, but that doesn't mean you can't build something new. What if I can't? Then you try anyway, and if you fail, you get up and try again. Is that what you did? Every single day. Ava felt tears prick at her eyes again. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Noah reached over and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was so gentle, so careful, that it made her chest ache. You're stronger than you think, he said. You just don't see it yet. How can you be so sure? Because you're still here. After everything that's happened, you're still here. That takes strength. Ava leaned into his hand, closing her eyes. For a moment, they stayed like that, the night quiet around them. Then Noah pulled back, and the moment broke. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Ava nodded and stood up. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him. Noah? Yeah? If I stay, what happens then? He looked at her, his expression unreadable in the darkness. I don't know, but I'd like to find out. Ava smiled, small and uncertain, and went inside. The next morning, Ava woke up with a plan. She found Noah in the barn. I need to go into town. He looked up from the tractor he was working on. Okay, what for? I need to make some calls, talk to some people, figure out what my options are. You want me to drive you? No, I need to do this on my own. Noah nodded. All right, be careful. Ava walked the 5 miles into town, her mind turning over the conversation she'd had with her father. She'd spent her whole life being told who she was supposed to be. The heiress, the businesswoman, the Sinclair legacy. But what if she wasn't any of those things? What if she was just Ava? She reached the diner and went inside. Deb looked up from behind the counter and smiled. Well, look who's back. Coffee? Please. Deb poured her a cup and set it down. You look like you got something heavy on your mind. You could say that. You want to talk about it? Ava hesitated. She barely knew this woman, but something about Deb, her easy warmth, the way she looked at Ava like she was a person and not a name, made her want to open up. Can I ask you something? Ava said. Sure. Have you ever had to choose between 2 completely different lives? Deb leaned against the counter, considering. Once, long time ago, I was engaged to a man who wanted to move to California. Big job opportunity. He wanted me to come with him, leave all this behind. What did you do? I stayed, married someone else, had 3 kids, built a life here. Do you regret it? Deb smiled. Some days, yeah. I wonder what California would have been like. But most days, I look at what I have and I'm grateful. Regret's a choice, honey. You can spend your whole life looking back, or you can look at where you are and make it count. Ava took a sip of her coffee. What if I don't know where I am? Then you figure it out, one day at a time. Ava smiled. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. People just make it complicated. Ava finished her coffee and left a $5 bill on the counter. Thank you, Deb. Anytime, honey. Ava walked out of the diner and down the street to the library. It was small, just one room with a few shelves and 3 computers. She sat down at one of the computers and started searching. She researched lawyers who specialized in corporate law. She looked up precedents for board votes and shareholder disputes. She read articles about people who'd walked away from family businesses and what had happened to them. And slowly, a plan started to form. It wasn't perfect. It might not even work. But it was hers. That afternoon, she called Daniel Marsh. Miss Sinclair, I was beginning to think you weren't going to call. I need you to set up a meeting with my father and the board. When? Tomorrow. There was a pause. That's very short notice. I don't care. Make it happen. May I ask what this is about? You'll find out tomorrow. She hung up before he could argue. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. But she felt more certain than she had in weeks. She was done running. When she got back to the farm, Noah and Emma were in the yard. Emma was drawing with chalk on the driveway, and Noah was sitting on the porch steps watching her. He looked up when Ava approached. How'd it go? I made a decision. Yeah? What is it? Ava sat down beside him. I'm going back, just for a day, to face my father and the board. Noah's expression didn't change. And then? And then I'm walking away. From the company. From the money. From all of it. You sure about that? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Noah nodded slowly. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? It's your choice, Ava, not mine. I know, but I need to know that when I come back, there's something to come back to. Noah looked at her, his eyes serious. There is. How can you be so sure? Because I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Emma. We'll be here. Ava felt the tears coming again. She was so tired of crying, but she couldn't seem to stop. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. You deserve to be happy, and if walking away from all that makes you happy, then do it. What if I regret it? Then you deal with it. But at least you'll know you made the choice for yourself. Emma ran over, her hands covered in chalk dust. Ava, look! I drew us! She pointed to the driveway. 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. A rainbow overhead. A sun with a smiley face. Ava's throat tightened. It's beautiful, Em. Are you leaving again? Just for a little bit, but I'm coming back. Promise? Ava looked at Noah, then back at Emma. I promise. Emma threw her arms around Ava's waist. Okay, I believe you. Ava held her tight and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. That night, Ava couldn't sleep again. She lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, running through everything she was going to say tomorrow. She'd rehearsed it 100 times in her head, but it still didn't feel real. She was going to walk into a boardroom full of men who'd known her since she was a child and tell them she was done. That she was walking away from a billion-dollar company to live on a failing farm in the middle of nowhere. They were going to think she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. She got out of bed and walked to the window. Outside, the fields stretched dark and endless under a sky full of stars. It was so quiet here, so different from the city, where the noise never stopped and the lights never went out. She heard a sound behind her and turned. Noah was standing in the doorway. Can't sleep? He asked. No. Me neither. He came into the room and stood beside her at the window. They looked out at the night together, not touching, not speaking. Finally, Ava said, What if I'm making a mistake? What if you're not? That's not an answer. It's the only one I got. Ava turned to look at him. His face was half in shadow, his eyes dark and steady. She wanted to ask him what he was thinking, if he was scared, if he thought she was crazy, but she didn't. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. Noah's fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. I'm scared, she said. I know. But I'm doing it anyway. I know that too. They stood there for a long time, holding hands in the dark, and Ava felt something settle inside her. Not peace exactly, but something close. When Noah finally left, Ava climbed back into bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she had this moment, this place, this man who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. And that was enough. The next morning, Noah drove her to the airport 2 hours away. They didn't talk much on the drive. Emma sat in the back seat, humming to herself, swinging her legs. She didn't understand what was happening. She just knew Ava was leaving and coming back, and that was enough for her. Ava wished it could be that simple for her, too. At the airport, Noah pulled up to the curb and put the truck in park. You got everything? He asked. Yeah. Ava had borrowed money from Noah for the plane ticket. She'd pay him back somehow. She didn't know how, but she would. She turned to look at Emma. Be good for your dad, okay? I'm always good, Noah snorted. That's debatable. Emma giggled. Ava smiled, then looked at Noah. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet. You haven't come back. I will. I'm counting on it. Ava wanted to kiss him. The urge was so strong it almost knocked the breath out of her. But Emma was watching, and it didn't feel right. Not yet. So she just squeezed his hand and got out of the truck. She grabbed her bag, a small duffel Noah had lent her, and walked toward the terminal. She looked back once and saw Noah and Emma watching her from the truck. Emma waved. Noah didn't. He just looked at her, his expression unreadable. And then Ava turned and walked inside. The flight to New York felt longer than it was. Ava sat in the window seat staring out at the clouds, her mind racing. She'd worn the only nice clothes she had, a blouse and slacks she'd bought at a thrift store in town. They didn't fit quite right, and they definitely weren't what the board was used to seeing her in. But they would have to do. She landed at JFK just after noon and took a cab to the Sinclair Industries building in Midtown. The skyscraper loomed over her, all glass and steel and cold ambition. She'd walked through those doors 1,000 times, but today it felt different. Today, she was walking in on her own terms. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor and stepped out into the lobby. The receptionist looked up, did a double take, and grabbed the phone. Ms. Sinclair is here, she said in a hushed voice. Within seconds, Daniel Marsh appeared, looking flustered. Ms. Sinclair, I wasn't expecting you until later. I'm early. So I see. The board is gathering now. Your father is already in the conference room. Good. Let's get this over with. Daniel led her down the hall. Ava's heels clicked on the marble floor, each step echoing in the silence. She felt like she was walking to her own execution. Maybe she was. Daniel opened the door to the conference room and Ava stepped inside. 12 men sat around a long table. Her father sat at the head, his expression cold and unreadable. He looked older than she remembered. Grayer. Tired. Ava, he said, you're late. I'm exactly on time. She walked to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table and sat down. Every eye in the room was on her. Her father leaned back in his chair. Gentlemen, as you know, my daughter has been absent for the past several weeks. She's here today to address her intentions regarding her position in this company. Ava looked around the table. Some of these men had known her since she was a child. Others were newer, brought in by her father to secure his control. None of them looked particularly happy to see her. I'll make this simple, Ava said. I'm resigning, effective immediately. I'm walking away from my position, my shares, and any claim to this company. The room erupted. You can't be serious. This is absurd. Richard, is she allowed to do this? Her father held up a hand and the room fell silent. He looked at Ava, his expression unreadable. Why? He asked. Because this isn't my life. It never was. It was yours and Mom's, but it's not mine. And what is your life, Ava? A farm? A man you barely know? Maybe. Or maybe it's something I haven't figured out yet, but it's mine, and that's what matters. One of the board members spoke up. Ms. Sinclair, if you walk away, you forfeit everything, your inheritance, your legacy, everything your mother built. I know. And you're willing to do that? Yes. Her father stood. Gentlemen, if you'll excuse us, I'd like to speak with my daughter, alone. The board members filed out, murmuring to each other. Daniel hesitated, then followed them. The door closed. Ava and her father stood on opposite ends of the room, staring at each other. You're throwing your life away, he said. No, I'm taking it back. From who? From you. The words hung in the air between them. Her father's jaw tightened. I gave you everything. You gave me a cage, and I'm done living in it. Your mother would want me to be happy, not successful, not powerful. Happy. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because she told me. Right before she died. Her father flinched. It was the first real emotion she'd seen from him in years. She said life was too short to live for someone else, Ava continued, and I've spent the last 15 years doing exactly that, living for you, for this company, for a legacy I never wanted. I'm done. And if you regret it, then I'll regret it, but at least it'll be my regret. Her father looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stared out at the city. I don't understand you, he said quietly. I know, and I'm okay with that. He turned back to her. If you do this, I can't protect you. You'll have nothing. I'll have myself. That's more than I've had in a long time. Her father nodded slowly. Then I suppose there's nothing left to say. I suppose not. Ava walked to the door, then paused and looked back. For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I just can't be you. Her father didn't respond. Ava left the room, walked through the lobby, and took the elevator down to the ground floor. She stepped out onto the street, and the noise of the city hit her like a wave. She stood there for a moment, breathing it in. Then she hailed a cab and headed back to the airport. The flight back to Kansas felt like the longest of her life. Ava sat in her seat, staring out the window, and waited for the regret to hit. For the voice in her head to start screaming that she'd made a terrible mistake. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt something else. Something lighter, something that felt almost like relief. She'd done it. She'd walked away. And the world hadn't ended. When the plane landed, she grabbed her bag and hurried through the terminal. Noah had said he'd pick her up, but she didn't see him at first. Then she heard a voice. Ava! She turned. Emma was running toward her, her face lit up with joy. Noah was behind her, walking slow and steady, his hands in his pockets. Emma crashed into Ava, wrapping her arms around her waist. You came back. I told you I would. Emma looked up at her, beaming. Did you fix everything? Ava smiled. Yeah, Em, I think I did. Noah reached them, and Ava looked up at him. His expression was cautious, hopeful. How'd it go? He asked. I walked away, from all of it. Yeah? Yeah. Any regrets? Ava looked at him, at Emma, at the life she was choosing. Not yet. Noah smiled, just a little. Good. He reached out and took her bag. Come on, let's go home. And Ava followed him, Emma's hand in hers, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she belonged. The drive back to the farm was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Emma sat in the back seat, chattering about everything that had happened while Ava was gone. How she'd helped her dad fix the gate, how she'd made cookies that turned out too hard, how she'd drawn 5 new pictures. Ava listened, smiling, her hand resting on the window frame as the Kansas landscape rolled past. Fields and sky and roads that went on forever. It looked different now. Not empty. Full. Noah glanced over at her. You okay? Yeah, I really am. You don't look like someone who just gave up a fortune. Maybe that's because I didn't. Maybe I just traded one thing for another. Noah's mouth quirked up at the corner. And what'd you get in the trade? Ava looked back at Emma, then at him. A chance to figure out who I am. That's worth more than any number in a bank account. You sound pretty sure about that. I'm not. But I'm learning that being sure isn't the point. Trying is. Noah nodded, his eyes back on the road. Yeah, I can respect that. When they pulled up to the farmhouse, Ava felt something shift in her chest. The house looked the same as it had when she left. Weathered siding, crooked porch, the barn leaning slightly to one side. But now it felt different. It felt like home. Emma jumped out of the truck and ran inside. Ava climbed out slower, her legs stiff from the flight. Noah came around and grabbed her bag from the bed of the truck. Welcome back, he said. Thanks. They stood there for a moment, neither of them quite sure what came next. Then Noah cleared his throat. You hungry? I made chili yesterday. It's not great, but it's edible. Ava smiled. Sounds perfect, Amazik. That night, after Emma went to bed, Ava and Noah sat on the porch like they had so many times before. But tonight felt different. The weight that had been pressing on Ava's chest for weeks was gone, replaced by something else. Uncertainty, maybe, but also possibility. Can I ask you something? Noah said. Sure. What happens now? I mean, you walked away from everything. You got no money, no job, no plan. What are you going to do? Ava leaned back in her chair. Honestly, I have no idea. I've spent my whole life having everything planned out for me. This is the first time I've ever been free. And it's terrifying. But you're not running. Not yet, anyway. Noah was quiet for a moment. You know you can stay here, long as you need. I can't do that. Why not? Because I can't just live off your charity forever. You've already done too much. It's not charity. It's... He stopped, searching for the right word. It's wanting you here. Ava looked at him, her heart pounding. Noah, I'm not good at this, he said, cutting her off. Talking about feelings. Sarah used to say I had the emotional range of a brick wall. And maybe she was right. But I know what I feel. And I feel like you belong here. With us. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. Emma lights up when you're around, and I... He paused, rubbing the back of his neck. I like who I am when you're here. I like who we are. Ava's throat tightened. I like who I am too, when I'm here, but I need to do something, Noah. I need to contribute. I can't just exist. Then we'll figure it out. Together. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. Ava smiled. Deb said the same thing. Then maybe you should listen. They sat in silence for a while, the night settling around them. Crickets sang. The breeze rustled through the fields. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew. I'm scared, Ava said finally. I'm scared that I made the wrong choice, that I'm going to wake up 6 months from now and regret everything, that I'm going to hurt you, or Emma, or both of you. Noah reached over and took her hand. You might. People hurt each other. That's what happens when you care about someone. But you can't let fear stop you from living. Is that what you did? After Sarah? For a while, yeah. I shut down. Stopped letting people in, focused on Emma and the farm and nothing else. And it worked. For a while. But it was lonely, and I was tired of being lonely. And now? Now I'm choosing to try again. With you. If you'll have me. Ava looked at him. This man who'd saved her life in more ways than one. This man who'd given her space to fall apart and put herself back together. This man who saw her, not the heiress, not the Sinclair name, just her, and wanted her anyway. I'm a mess, Noah. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be normal. I don't know if I can give you what you need. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be here. Ava felt tears prick at her eyes. I want to stay, but I need to do it right. I need to find my own way first. Okay, then we'll do it your way. Just like that? Just like that. Ava squeezed his hand. Thank you. For what? For believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Noah pulled her closer, and Ava let herself lean into him. They sat like that for a long time, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, watching the stars come out one by one. And for the first time in her life, Ava felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next morning, Ava woke up with a plan. It wasn't a perfect plan. It probably wasn't even a good plan. But it was hers, and that was enough. She found Noah in the barn working on the tractor again. He looked up when she came in, wiping grease off his hands. Morning. Morning. Can I talk to you about something? Sure. What's up? I want to get a job. In town. Something simple. Waitressing, maybe. Or working at the store. I need to start earning my own money. Noah frowned. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I need to stand on my own feet, and I need to start paying you back for everything you've done. I told you, you don't owe me anything. I know, but I owe myself this. I need to prove that I can do it, that I can build a life without my father's money. Noah studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, if that's what you want. It is. Then I'll drive you into town later. We'll ask around. Ava smiled. Thank you. Stop thanking me. You're starting to sound like a broken record. She laughed. Okay, no more thank yous. Good. That afternoon, Noah drove her into town. They stopped at the diner first. Deb looked up when they walked in, her face breaking into a smile. Well, well, look who's back. Hi, Deb. Heard you went to the big city. How'd that go? I quit my job, walked away from everything. Deb whistled. That's a hell of a thing. Yeah, and now I need a new job. You hiring? Deb raised an eyebrow. You serious? Dead serious. You ever waited tables before? No, but I'm a fast learner. Deb looked at Noah, who just shrugged. Then she looked back at Ava. All right, I'll give you a shot. But I'm warning you, it's hard work. Long hours, lousy tips. I can handle it. We'll see. You can start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Ava's eyes widened. 6? That's when the breakfast rush starts. You got a problem with that? No, no problem. Good. Don't be late. Ava grinned. I won't. As they left the diner, Noah looked at her. You sure about this? 6 a.m. is early. I've sat through board meetings that started at 5. I think I can handle breakfast rush. Board meetings don't involve carrying hot plates and dealing with grumpy farmers who haven't had their coffee yet. Then I guess I'll learn. Noah shook his head, smiling. You're something else, you know that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Still trying to figure that out. Ava's first day at the diner was a disaster. She spilled coffee on a customer, forgot 3 orders, dropped a plate of eggs on the floor. By 10 a.m., she was sweating, exhausted, and ready to quit. But she didn't. She kept going, kept trying, kept learning. Deb watched from behind the counter, her expression somewhere between amused and impressed. At the end of the shift, she pulled Ava aside. You did terrible, she said. I know. But you didn't quit. That counts for something. Does that mean I still have a job? Deb smiled. Yeah, you still have a job. But you better improve or I'm putting you on dish duty. I'll improve, I promise. Over the next few weeks, Ava did improve. Slowly. She learned how to balance 3 plates at once. how to remember orders without writing them down, how to smile at customers even when they were rude, how to move fast without spilling things. It was hard, harder than anything she'd done in a boardroom, but it was honest work, and it was hers. The tips weren't great, but they were enough to start paying Noah back for the plane ticket, enough to buy her own clothes instead of borrowing his, enough to feel like she was contributing. And at night, when she came home to the farm, Emma would run out to meet her, and Noah would have dinner waiting. And for the first time in her life, Ava understood what it meant to be part of something real. One evening, about a month after she started at the diner, Ava came home to find Noah and Emma sitting at the kitchen table with serious expressions on their faces. "What's wrong?" she asked. Emma looked at Noah. Noah looked at Ava. "We need to talk to you about something," he said. Ava's stomach dropped. "Okay." She sat down across from them. Emma was fidgeting with a crayon, her eyes downcast. "What's going on?" Ava asked. Noah cleared his throat. "Emma has something she wants to ask you, but she's nervous." Ava looked at Emma. "You can ask me anything, sweetheart." Emma looked up, her eyes big and uncertain. "Are you going to leave?" "What?" "No, why would you think that?" "Because everyone leaves. My mom left. And I thought, maybe you would too." Ava's heart broke. She reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "Emma, look at me." Emma looked up. "I'm not going anywhere," Ava said. "I know I went away once, but I came back. And I'm staying, okay?" "Promise?" "I promise." Emma's face crumpled and she started to cry. Ava got up and pulled her into a hug, holding her tight while she sobbed. Noah watched, his expression pained. When Emma finally calmed down, Ava pulled back and wiped her tears. "Better?" Emma nodded. "Good. Now go wash your face. We're having spaghetti for dinner, and you can't eat with snot all over your face." Emma giggled and ran to the bathroom. Ava sat back down, her hands shaking. Noah reached over and took one of them. "She's been holding that in for weeks," he said quietly. "I didn't know." "She's good at hiding it. Gets it from me." Ava squeezed his hand. "I meant what I said. I'm not leaving." "I know, but she needed to hear it." "And you? Did you need to hear it?" Noah looked at her, his eyes serious. "Yeah, I did." They sat like that, holding hands across the table, until Emma came back and demanded spaghetti. Odd. As summer turned to fall, the farm started to feel less like a place Ava was visiting and more like a place she belonged. She learned the rhythms of it, the early mornings, the quiet afternoons, the evenings when the three of them sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. She learned how to cook, not well, but well enough that Emma stopped making faces at her attempts. She learned how to fix things, how to drive the tractor, how to tell when a storm was coming by the way the air felt. She learned how to be still, how to sit with her thoughts without running from them, how to be okay with not knowing what came next. And she learned how to let people in, how to accept help without feeling weak, how to love without fear. Because that's what it was. Love. She loved Emma, loved the way she laughed and drew and asked a million questions, loved the way she crawled into Ava's lap during movie nights and fell asleep with her head on Ava's shoulder. And she loved Noah. Loved the way he worked without complaining, loved the way he looked at her like she was something precious. Loved the way he made her feel safe without making her feel small. She didn't say it out loud, not yet, but she felt it, every day, in 100 small ways. One Saturday in October, Noah asked if she wanted to go to the river with him and Emma. "The river?" Ava asked. "Why?" "It's a nice day. Figured we could have a picnic." Emma's been asking. Ava hesitated. She hadn't been back to the river since the night of the crash. The thought of it made her stomach twist. Noah must have seen it on her face. "We don't have to. I just thought—" "No," Ava said. "No, I want to. I need to." They packed sandwiches and lemonade and drove to the river. Emma ran ahead, splashing in the shallow water and collecting rocks. Noah spread out a blanket on the grass, and Ava sat down staring at the water. The bridge had been repaired. The wreckage of her car was long gone, but she could still see it in her mind, could still feel the water closing over her head. The panic. The certainty that she was going to die. Noah sat down beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" about how different things could have been. If you hadn't been here that night, if you hadn't pulled me out. But I was, and I did. I know, but what if you hadn't? Noah looked at her. Then I'd have spent the rest of my life wondering who you were, and Emma would have had one less person who cares about her, and this farm would still feel empty. Ava's throat tightened. You really believe that? That I make a difference? I know you do. We both do. Emma ran over holding a rock. Ava, look! It's shaped like a heart. Ava took the rock and smiled. It is. That's perfect. You should keep it, for good luck. Ava tucked the rock into her pocket. I will, thank you. Emma ran off again, and Noah stretched out on the blanket, his hands behind his head. Ava lay down beside him, staring up at the sky. I'm glad I crashed, she said suddenly. Noah turned his head to look at her. What? I mean, I'm glad I survived, but I'm also glad I crashed, because if I hadn't, I never would have ended up here. I never would have met you, or Emma. I'd still be in New York, miserable, and pretending I wasn't. That's a hell of a silver lining. I know, but it's true. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us turn out to be the best things, because they force us to change, to become who we're supposed to be. Noah reached over and took her hand. And who are you supposed to be? Ava thought about it. I don't know yet, but I'm figuring it out, one day at a time. That's all any of us can do. They lay there in the grass, holding hands, watching the clouds drift by. Emma splashed in the water, birds sang in the trees. The world felt big and small at the same time. And Ava realized something. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was just living, messily, imperfectly, honestly. And that was enough. That night, after Emma went to bed, Ava found Noah on the porch. He was sitting on the steps, staring out at the dark fields. She sat down beside him. Can I tell you something? Always. I love you. Noah turned to look at her, his eyes wide. What? I love you. I've been trying to figure out when to say it, and I realize there's never going to be a perfect time. So I'm just saying it now. I love you, and I love Emma, and I love this life we're building together, and I'm terrified that I'm going to screw it up, but I wanted you to know. Noah stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, slow and genuine. You're not going to screw it up? How do you know? Because you care too much, and because I love you too. Ava's breath caught. You do? Yeah, I have for a while now. Just didn't know how to say it. And now? Now I'm saying it. I love you, Ava Sinclair. Even without the money and the name and all the things you used to have, I love you for who you are. Right here, right now. Ava kissed him. It was soft and sweet and a little awkward, but it was perfect. When they pulled apart, Noah rested his forehead against hers. So what happens now? He asked. I don't know, but whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Together. Together, Noah repeated. I like the sound of that. They sat on the porch until late into the night, talking about nothing and everything. About the future. About the farm. About what kind of life they wanted to build. And for the first time, Ava wasn't afraid of the answers. 6 months later, Ava stood in the yard, watching Emma chase chickens. The farm looked different now. They'd fixed the barn, painted the house, planted a garden that was starting to bloom. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was theirs. Ava had saved enough money from the diner to buy a used car. Nothing fancy, just a beat-up Honda that got her where she needed to go. She'd also started taking classes online. Business management, accounting, things that might help her and Noah turn the farm into something sustainable. It was slow going, but it was progress. Noah came up beside her, slipping an arm around her waist. What are you thinking about? How far we've come, how different everything is. Good different or bad different? Good, definitely good. Emma ran over, out of breath. Dad, Ava, can we have pancakes for dinner? Noah looked at Ava. What do you think? I think pancakes for dinner sounds perfect. Emma cheered and ran inside. Noah kissed the top of Ava's head. You know, I never thought I'd be here again. Happy, building something new. But here we are. Here we are, Ava agreed. Any regrets? Ava thought about it. About the life she'd left behind, the money, the power, the name. She thought about her father, who hadn't spoken to her since that day in the boardroom. about the company she'd walked away from, and she realized she didn't regret any of it. "No," she said. "No regrets." "Good, because I'm not letting you go." "Wouldn't dream of it." They walked inside together, hand in hand, and Ava felt something settle deep in her chest. Not certainty, not perfection, but something close. Peace. Bam. Later that night, after pancakes and dishes and Emma's bedtime routine, Ava sat down at the kitchen table with a notebook. She'd been thinking about something for a while now. An idea. A dream. She wanted to start a foundation, something to help people who were stuck the way she'd been. People who had money and power, but no freedom. People who needed a way out but didn't know how to take it. She didn't know how to do it yet, didn't know where to start, but she knew she wanted to try. Noah came in and saw her scribbling notes. "What are you working on?" "An idea. I want to help people like me, who feel trapped." Noah sat down across from her. "How?" "I don't know yet. Maybe a nonprofit, maybe something else. But I want to use what I learned, the good and the bad. I want to make it count." "Sounds like you." "Yeah?" "Yeah. You've always been someone who wants to fix things, even when you were broken yourself." Ava smiled. "I'm still a little broken. We all are. But you're putting yourself back together, and that takes guts. I learned from the best." Noah reached across the table and took her hand. "You're going to do great things, Ava. I know it. We're going to do great things. Together." "Together," Noah said again. And Ava believed it. 1 year after the crash, Ava stood at the river with Noah and Emma. They'd come here to mark the anniversary. Not to mourn what had happened, but to celebrate what had come from it. Emma threw flowers into the water. "For new beginnings," she said solemnly. Ava smiled. "For new beginnings." They stood there for a while, watching the water flow past. Ava thought about the woman who'd driven off that bridge a year ago, lost, desperate, running from a life she couldn't stand. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new. Someone who knew how to work hard and love deeply and build something from nothing. Someone who wasn't afraid of being imperfect. Someone who understood that life wasn't about having all the answers. It was about being brave enough to ask the questions. Noah put his arm around her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I really am." "Good. Because I have something to ask you." Ava looked at him. "What?" Noah pulled a small box from his pocket and got down on one knee. Ava's heart stopped. "I'm not good at speeches," he said, "and I don't have much to offer, but I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So, will you marry me?" Ava looked at the ring, simple, silver, perfect, and then at Noah. At Emma, who was grinning so wide her face might split, at the river and the fields and the sky, and she said the easiest word she'd ever spoken. "Yes." Emma screamed and tackled them both. They fell into the grass, laughing, tangled together. When they finally pulled apart, Noah slipped the ring onto Ava's finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." They kissed, and Emma made gagging noises, and everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to. Life didn't become perfect after that. There were still hard days, days when money was tight and the farm barely broke even. Days when Ava wondered if she'd made the right choice. Days when the weight of what she'd given up felt too heavy to carry. But there were good days too. Days when Emma came home with a perfect report card. Days when the garden bloomed. Days when Ava and Noah sat on the porch and talked until the sun came up. And slowly, the good days started to outnumber the bad. They got married in the spring, nothing fancy, just a small ceremony at the farm with a handful of friends and neighbors. Deb made the cake. Emma was the flower girl. And when Noah kissed Ava at the altar, she felt like the richest person in the world, because she had something money couldn't buy. She had love, she had family, she had a life she'd chosen for herself. And that was worth everything. Sometimes, late at night, Ava thought about her father, about whether he ever thought of her, whether he regretted the way things had ended. She'd never know. He never reached out, never called, never wrote. And after a while, she stopped waiting for him to, because she'd learned something important. You can't build a new life while clinging to the old one. You have to let go. You have to trust that the people who matter will find you, and the ones who don't, You have to be okay with losing them. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, and Ava was learning to be okay with necessary. 5 years after the crash, Ava stood in the driveway of the farm, watching Emma, now 13, climb into the school bus. The farm was thriving now. They'd expanded, added livestock, started selling at the farmer's market. It wasn't making them rich, but it was enough. Ava's foundation was up and running too, small, but growing. She'd helped 3 people leave toxic situations and start over. 3 people who'd been where she was, lost, scared, trapped. It wasn't much, but it was something. Noah came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am." "Lucky?" "Yeah, I crashed my car, almost died, lost everything, and somehow I ended up here, with you, with Emma, with this life. That's luck." "I don't know if I'd call it luck. I think you fought for this." "Maybe, but I couldn't have done it without you." Noah kissed her neck. "We did it together. That's the point." Ava turned in his arms and looked at him, at the gray in his hair that hadn't been there 5 years ago, at the lines around his eyes from smiling, at the man who'd saved her life and then helped her build a new one. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." They stood there in the driveway holding each other, and Ava thought about the woman she used to be, the heiress, the Sinclair legacy, the person who had everything and felt nothing. That woman was gone. In her place was someone better, someone who knew that the best things in life weren't the things you inherited or bought or controlled. They were the things you built with your own hands, the relationships you nurtured, the love you gave and received. They were the moments like this, ordinary, quiet, perfect. And Ava wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. Thus, here's the thing about second chances. They don't come easy. You don't get them by wishing or hoping or waiting for someone else to fix things. You get them by making hard choices, by walking away from what's comfortable and stepping into the unknown, by being brave enough to fail and humble enough to ask for help. Ava learned that the hard way. But she learned it. She learned that happiness isn't something you find, it's something you build. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time. She learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who show up, who stay, who love you even when you're a mess. She learned that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means making room for something better. And she learned that the worst moments of your life can lead to the best ones. If you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to change, if you're willing to believe that you deserve more than what you've settled for. It took Ava a long time to believe she deserved this life, this love, this family. But she did. And so did Noah. And so did Emma. They all deserved a second chance. And they took it together. That evening, Ava sat on the porch with Noah, watching the sun set over the fields. Emma was inside, doing homework and complaining about math. The chickens were settling in for the night. The world was quiet and still. "You ever miss it?" Noah asked. "The old life." Ava thought about it, really thought about it. "Sometimes," she said honestly, "I miss the security, the certainty, knowing exactly what came next, but I don't miss the person I was. And I don't miss feeling empty. And now I feel full. Even when things are hard. Even when I don't know what's coming. I feel full." Noah smiled. "Good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to purple. "Thank you," Ava said suddenly. "For what?" "For pulling me out of that river. For giving me a place to land. For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself." Noah took her hand. "You would have figured it out eventually. You're stronger than you think." "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to figure it out alone." "Me too." They watched the stars come out, one by one, until the sky was full of them. And Ava realized that this moment, this life, this love, was everything she'd been searching for. Not in boardrooms or bank accounts or her father's approval, but here, in the quiet, in the simple, in the real. She'd driven her car off a bridge looking for an escape, and she'd found so much more. She'd found herself. She'd found a family. She'd found home. And she'd learned the most important lesson of all, that it's never too late to start over, to choose differently, To build a life that feels like yours, all you have to do is be brave enough to try and keep trying, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's what life is. A series of choices, and the only one that matters is the choice to keep going, to keep loving, to keep hoping, to keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today. Ava chose that every day, and it made all the difference.